Close your eyes for a moment and think about yesterday. How many hours did you spend doing something that truly mattered to you? How many moments were stolen by notifications, endless scrolling, or jumping from one distraction to another? Now, imagine a different version of yourself. Someone who wakes up with crystal clear focus. Someone who finishes important projects while others are still checking their phones. Someone who actually remembers their day because they were fully present for it. That person isn't fictional. That person is you, waiting on the other side of one critical skill. In a world designed to fracture your attention into a million pieces, the ability to focus has become the ultimate superpower. The question is, are you ready to claim it? Chapter 1. Reclaim your attention, the ultimate modern superpower. Your attention is being stolen. Right now, at this very moment, there's a silent war being fought for control of your mind. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You're losing. Think about the last time you sat down to do something important. Maybe it was studying for an exam, working on a project, or even just having a meaningful conversation. How long did it take before your phone buzzed? Before a notification appeared? Before your mind wandered to check social media just for a second? That second turned into 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes became an hour. And suddenly, the day was gone. This isn't your fault. You're not weak or undisciplined. You're fighting against billion-dollar companies that employ thousands of engineers and psychologists whose only job is to capture your attention and never let it go. Your phone, your apps, your entire digital world has been weaponized against your ability to focus. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because in this battle for your attention, there's a plot twist. The very thing that makes you vulnerable is also what makes you powerful. Attention is the currency of achievement. Everything you've ever wanted to learn, create, or become requires one thing above all else: the ability to direct your mental energy toward what matters and keep it there. Focus is how ordinary people produce extraordinary results. It's how students become scholars. It's how dreamers become creators. And right now, while everyone around you is drowning in distraction, your ability to focus makes you rare, valuable, unstoppable. Consider this. In 1971, the average person was exposed to about 500 advertisements per day. Today, that number has exploded to over 5,000. Your brain is processing 10 times more information than your grandparents' generation, yet you have the same 24 hours they did. The math doesn't work unless something changes. That something is you taking back control. When you master your attention, everything shifts. Your productivity doesn't just improve, it multiplies. Your learning accelerates. Your relationships deepen because you're actually present. Your stress decreases because you're no longer constantly context switching between a dozen half-finished tasks. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like you're creating it. The greatest mind throughout history understood this. Einstein didn't discover relativity by checking his notifications every 3 minutes. Marie Curie didn't win 2 Nobel Prizes by scrolling through feeds. They achieved the impossible by doing something very simple. They protected their attention like it was their most valuable possession, because it was. And it still is. Your attention determines what you notice, what you learn, what you remember, and ultimately, who you become. Where your attention goes, your life follows. This isn't motivation. This is neuroscience. Your brain literally rewires itself based on what you consistently focus on. Choose distraction, and you build a distracted mind. Choose focus, and you build a focused life. The beautiful part is, you get to choose. Every moment is a new opportunity to decide where your attention goes. This audiobook is your guide to making that choice deliberately, powerfully, and permanently. You're about to learn how your attention really works, why it's under attack, and most importantly, how to defend it and deploy it toward the life you actually want to create. The journey starts now.
The superpower is waiting, and by the time we're finished, you won't just understand focus, you'll master it. If this resonates with you, show your support by hitting that like button.
Chapter 2. The Science of Daily Growth. How to improve yourself every day. There's a secret that separates people who transform their lives from people who stay stuck. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even hard work in the traditional sense. It's understanding one simple truth. You don't need to change your entire life in one day. You just need to change today. Your brain is a remarkable machine, constantly rewiring itself based on what you do repeatedly. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. Think of it as your brain's superpower, the ability to reshape itself, create new pathways, and literally evolve based on your daily actions. Every single day, you're either building the person you want to become or reinforcing the person you've always been. Here's where it gets fascinating. Your brain doesn't distinguish between big changes and small ones when it comes to forming new connections. Whether you read for 5 minutes or 5 hours, your brain registers the pattern. Whether you exercise for 10 minutes or 60, your body recognizes the habit. The size of the action matters less than the consistency of it. This is why New Year's resolutions fail 90% of the time. People try to become completely different overnight. They want to go from never reading to reading 2 hours daily, from no exercise to intense gym sessions 6 days a week, from junk food to perfect nutrition. The gap between who they are and who they're trying to become is so massive that their brain rebels against it. But daily growth works differently. It's subtle, almost invisible, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. Imagine you improved by just 1% every single day, just one tiny percent. Most people would laugh at that number. 1% feels insignificant. You wouldn't even notice the difference day to day. But here's the math that changes everything. If you improve by 1% daily for a year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up 37 times better than when you started. 37 times. That's not motivation. That's compound interest applied to your life. Small improvements stack on top of each other, creating momentum that becomes unstoppable. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary things, not through dramatic transformations, but through daily dedication to getting slightly better. Let's make this practical. What does daily growth actually look like? It's reading 10 pages instead of scrolling for 10 minutes. It's learning one new concept instead of consuming mindless content. It's asking one thoughtful question instead of accepting everything at face value. It's reflecting on one lesson from your day instead of rushing into tomorrow without learning from today. The beauty of this approach is that it removes pressure. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to be better than yesterday. Some days that improvement is massive. Other days it's microscopic. Both count, both matter, both compound over time. Your brain loves patterns and predictability. When you commit to daily growth, you're creating a pattern your brain can latch onto. At first, it requires conscious effort. You have to remind yourself. You have to push yourself. But after a few weeks, something magical happens. The behavior starts feeling natural. Your brain automates it. What once required willpower now requires almost none. This is how you build a learning lifestyle instead of just having learning goals. Goals have finish lines. Lifestyles are permanent. When daily growth becomes your lifestyle, you stop needing external motivation because the process itself becomes rewarding. Your brain starts craving that daily dose of progress. Think about the compound effect over months and years. Someone who learns something new every day for a year has 365 new pieces of knowledge, insight, or skill.
Someone who reflects on their lessons daily for a year has 365 opportunities to grow wiser. These advantages multiply. They don't just add up, they stack and amplify each other. The people you admire, the ones who seem naturally talented or extraordinarily successful, they're not superhuman. They simply understood this principle earlier than most. They made daily growth non-negotiable. They protected their progress like it was sacred. And over time, their small daily efforts created results that look like overnight success to everyone else. You have the same opportunity right now. Today can be day one, or it can be one day. The choice is always yours. But understand this: every day you delay is a day of compound growth you're giving up. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is right now, this moment, with whatever small step you can take today. Your future self is built by your daily self. Who are you building?
Chapter 3. Small Daily Lessons, Massive Life Shifts. There's a moment that happens in every person's transformation journey. It's quiet, easy to miss, but it changes everything. It's the moment you realize that the small things you've been doing daily aren't small anymore. Most people chase big breakthroughs. They want the dramatic moment, the lightning strike of change, the overnight success story. They look for the one big idea, the one perfect strategy, the one life-altering event that will finally make everything click. And while they're searching for that magical moment, they miss the real magic happening right in front of them. The real magic is in the mundane. Think about how water shapes stone. A single drop of water hitting a rock does nothing. You could watch it happen and see zero change. But that same drop, falling in the same spot, day after day, year after year, eventually carves through solid stone. The drop didn't get bigger. The strategy didn't change. The only thing that mattered was consistency over time. Your life works exactly the same way. Every small lesson you learn, every tiny habit you build, every marginal improvement you make, these are your drops of water. Individually, they seem insignificant, but collectively, over time, they reshape your entire reality. Let's talk about what a small daily lesson actually means. It's not complicated. It's reading one insightful paragraph and actually thinking about it. It's watching one educational video and applying one idea from it. It's having one meaningful conversation that challenges your perspective. It's making one mistake and extracting one lesson instead of just feeling bad about it. These micro lessons seem too simple to matter. That's why most people dismiss them. They want the university degree, the certification, the formal training. And sure, those have value. But here's what nobody tells you. The person who learns something small every single day for 5 years will surpass the person who did intense learning for 6 months and then stopped. Consistency beats intensity every single time. There's a concept in physics called critical mass. It's the point where small, seemingly unrelated changes suddenly cascade into a massive transformation. Think about heating water. From 0 to 99 degrees, water is still water. You can see it getting warmer, but nothing fundamentally has changed. Then you add one more degree, just one, and suddenly everything transforms. The water becomes steam. Same substance, completely different state. Your life has critical mass moments too. You're learning, growing, and improving daily, and it might feel like nothing is really changing. You're still in the same job, still facing the same challenges, still dealing with the same limitations. It's easy to think your daily lessons aren't working, but they are.
They're accumulating beneath the surface, building pressure, creating the conditions for transformation. And then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, everything shifts. Opportunities appear. Solutions become obvious. Your perspective fundamentally changes. People start noticing something different about you. That's not luck. That's compound learning reaching critical mass. Consider the person who learns one new word every day. After a year, they've added 365 words to their vocabulary. That's significant, but it's still just vocabulary. But here's the deeper effect. Those words change how they think. Each word represents a new concept, a new way to describe reality, a new tool for understanding complexity. Their thinking becomes more nuanced. Their communication becomes more precise. Their ability to understand difficult ideas improves. One simple habit, learning a single word daily, fundamentally upgrades how their mind works. This pattern repeats across every area of life. The person who does 10 minutes of exercise daily doesn't just get slightly more fit. They build discipline. They prove to themselves they can commit. They create momentum that eventually makes harder workouts feel natural. The person who writes one paragraph daily doesn't just improve their writing, they clarify their thinking. They process their experiences. They develop a practice of self-expression that transforms how they understand themselves. Small daily lessons create massive life shifts because they change your identity. You're not just learning new information, you're becoming a different kind of person. A person who learns, a person who grows, a person who doesn't accept stagnation as inevitable. And here's the best part. Small daily lessons are sustainable. You won't burn out learning one thing per day. You won't feel overwhelmed reading 10 pages daily. You won't resent a practice that takes 15 minutes. The sustainability is what makes it powerful. You can maintain this forever, which means you can grow forever. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They try to cram massive change into short time frames, fail, and give up. Meanwhile, the person making small daily progress barely seems to be moving. But check back in 6 months, a year, 5 years. The gap between them becomes a canyon. Your small daily lessons are not too small. They're exactly the right size. They're small enough to be doable and consistent enough to be transformative. Trust the process. Trust the compound effect. Trust that every drop of water matters. The stone is already changing. You just can't see it yet.
Chapter 4: The Power of Self-Education in a Distracted World. We live in the most incredible paradox in human history. You have more access to knowledge than every generation before you combined. Every book ever written, every lecture ever recorded, every skill ever taught, all available instantly, often for free, right in your pocket. You could learn anything, become anyone, master any subject. The barriers that once stopped people from learning have completely vanished. And yet, we're more distracted, more scattered, and more intellectually stagnant than ever before. The same device that gives you access to the entire library of human knowledge also gives you access to infinite entertainment, endless social media, and perfectly engineered distractions designed to keep you numb and scrolling. The opportunity is unprecedented, but so is the competition for your attention. This is where self-education becomes not just valuable, but essential. And not the kind of self-education that's about collecting certificates or adding lines to your resume. The real kind, the kind that fundamentally changes how you think, what you're capable of, and who you become. Self-education is the ultimate act of rebellion in a distracted world. While everyone around you is being programmed by algorithms, you're programming yourself. While others are consuming whatever content gets pushed to them, you're choosing what enters your mind. While the crowd is getting dumber by distraction, you're getting sharper by design. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Having access to information means nothing if you don't use it. You're not educated by osmosis. You don't get smarter just because knowledge exists somewhere on the internet. You get smarter by deliberately, consistently, and strategically choosing to learn. Think about the average person's relationship with their phone. Hours per day on social media, binge-watching shows they'll forget next week, scrolling through news that makes them angry but doesn't make them wise. Now imagine if just 10% of that time, not even half, not even a quarter, just 10% was redirected towards intentional learning. 10% of 4 hours is 24 minutes. That's enough time to read 15 pages of a meaningful book, watch an educational documentary, learn the basics of a new skill, have a deep conversation with someone wiser than you. 24 minutes a day becomes 3 hours per week, 12 hours per month, 144 hours per year. That's the equivalent of nearly 4 full work weeks dedicated to learning, all from redirecting 10% of your phone time. But most people won't do it. They'll keep choosing distraction over development. And that's actually great news for you, because it means your competition is eliminating itself. Self-education gives you asymmetric advantages. While formal education teaches everyone the same things at the same pace, self-education lets you specialize, go deep, learn exactly what you need when you need it. You're not waiting for permission or following someone else's curriculum. You're building knowledge customized to your goals, your interests, your timeline. Let's be honest about formal education for a moment. It has value, but it's also deeply flawed. The traditional system was designed for the industrial age to create obedient workers who could follow instructions and perform repetitive tasks. It rewards memorization over understanding, compliance over creativity, and fitting in over standing out. It teaches you what to think, rarely how to think. Self-education is different. It's about learning how to learn, developing curiosity as a superpower, building the ability to teach yourself anything, which means you're never limited by what you were taught. When you become a self-educator, you become unstoppable because you're no longer dependent on institutions, teachers, or gatekeepers to grow. The skills that will matter most in your future don't exist in any formal curriculum yet. Technology is evolving too fast. Industries are transforming too quickly. By the time a university creates a program for an emerging field, that field has already evolved. The only way to keep up is to take responsibility for your own education. This doesn't mean formal education is worthless. It means it's incomplete. The degree gets you in the room. Self-education determines what you do once you're there. The person who combines formal credentials with aggressive self-education becomes genuinely rare and valuable. Here's how to think about self-education practically. First, clarity. What do you actually want to learn and why? Not what sounds impressive or what others expect, what genuinely matters to you and your goals. Second, curation. With infinite information available, you need filters. Find the best books, the best teachers, the best sources. Quality over quantity always. And third, application. Learning without doing is just entertainment. The real education happens when you use what you learn, test it, fail at it, and refine it. And finally, consistency. This is where most people fail. They get excited, consume a ton of content for a few days, and then disappear back into distraction. Real self-education is a daily practice. It's treating your mind like you'd treat your body if you were training for an athletic competition. You wouldn't work out intensely for 1 week and expect to be fit. You show up consistently, improve gradually, and trust the process. In a distracted world, your willingness to educate yourself deliberately is your greatest competitive advantage. While others are being shaped by whoever shouts the loudest, you're being shaped by whoever teaches the wisest. While others are trapped in echo chambers, you're expanding your perspective. While others are consumers, you are becoming a creator. The power is literally in your hands. The question is, what will you do with it? Inspired to take control of your learning?
Chapter 5. Discipline turns curiosity into power. Curiosity is a spark. Discipline is the engine. And most people die with their sparks intact, but their engines never built. Think about how many times you've been curious about something. Maybe you wondered how to start a business, or wanted to learn a new language, or felt drawn to understand psychology, coding, fitness, or music. That initial curiosity felt exciting, full of possibility. You imagined the person you could become if you actually pursued it. And then what happened? Life got busy. The initial excitement faded. The path looked longer and harder than you expected. You told yourself you'd get to it later, when things calmed down, when you had more time, when conditions were perfect. Curiosity became just another passing thought, another what if that never became what is. This is the tragedy of undisciplined curiosity. It teases you with potential, but delivers nothing. It fills your head with dreams, but leaves your life unchanged. It makes you feel like you're interested in growth while actually keeping you comfortable in stagnation. Discipline changes everything. Discipline is what transforms "I'm interested in that" into "I'm skilled at that." It's the bridge between wanting and having, between dreaming and doing, between potential and reality. But let's clear up a massive misconception right now. Discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It's not about punishment or suffering or forcing yourself to do things you hate. That's not discipline. That's self-abuse wearing discipline's mask. Real discipline is about loving your future self more than you love your current comfort. It's about making choices today that your tomorrow self will thank you for. It's short-term sacrifice for long-term freedom. It's actually the deepest form of self-love because you're refusing to trade your potential for temporary pleasure. Think about it like this. Every day you face a choice. You can do what's easy and comfortable now, or you can do what's challenging but valuable now. The easy path feels better immediately, but costs you over time. The challenging path feels harder immediately, but pays you over time. Discipline is simply choosing the second option consistently enough that it becomes who you are. Here's where curiosity and discipline create magic together. Curiosity shows you what's possible. It opens doors. It reveals new worlds. But curiosity without discipline is just window shopping. You look, you admire, you imagine, but you never actually enter and claim what's inside. Discipline is what makes you walk through the door and stay in the room long enough to receive what curiosity showed you. Let's talk about how this plays out practically. You get curious about getting in shape. Great. That curiosity might get you to the gym once or twice. You feel motivated, you feel inspired. But when that initial excitement wears off, and it will, what happens? If you only have curiosity, you stop. The gym becomes just another place you used to go. But if you've built discipline, you keep showing up, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's raining, even when you're tired. Discipline says, we committed to this. We're doing it regardless of how we feel. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think it means you'll eventually love the process. That's not always true. Sometimes discipline means doing things you don't enjoy because you love the results more than you hate the process. The disciplined person doesn't always want to work out. They just refuse to negotiate with the part of themselves that wants to quit. But here's something beautiful that happens over time. When you practice discipline consistently, your relationship with discomfort changes. Things that once felt impossible start feeling manageable. What used to require massive willpower starts requiring barely any. This isn't because the tasks got easier. It's because you got stronger. Your discipline muscle grew. And yes, discipline is literally a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The less you use it, the weaker it becomes. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're doing a rep. Every time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you're building strength. And just like physical muscles, this strength transfers. When you build discipline in one area, it becomes easier to be disciplined in other areas. The person who builds discipline in their fitness doesn't just get fit. They prove to themselves they're capable of commitment. That proof spills over into their work, their relationships, their learning. Suddenly, they're the kind of person who finishes what they start, who does what they say, who turns plans into reality. This is how discipline turns curiosity into power. Curiosity gives you the vision. Discipline gives you the vehicle. Together, they take you anywhere you want to go. Think about the most powerful version of yourself, the one living the life you actually want. That person has the same 24 hours you have, the same access to information, the same fundamental capabilities. The only difference is discipline. They chose it. They practiced it. They became it. You can become it too. Not someday, today. Right now, with the very next choice you make. Will you honor your curiosity with discipline, or will you let it fade into another forgotten interest? Will you be someone who wonders what could have been, or someone who knows what they achieved? Your curiosity showed you the door. Discipline is what walks you through it. The question is, are you ready to walk? Chapter 6. Knowledge means nothing until you use it. Here's an uncomfortable truth. You already know enough to change your life, right now. With what you already understand, you could be healthier, wealthier, happier, and more successful. The information exists in your head. The knowledge is there. But your life hasn't changed because knowing and doing are two completely different things. We live in a world obsessed with collecting knowledge. People binge podcasts, read dozens of books, watch countless videos, attend seminars, take courses. They accumulate information like some people collect stamps, and they feel productive doing it. They feel like they're growing because they're learning. But they're not growing. They're just becoming educated consumers instead of uneducated ones. They know more, but they are not more. And there's a massive, life-altering difference between those two states. Knowledge that sits unused is like money that stays in your pocket forever. Technically, you have it, but it's not doing anything for you. It's not working, not multiplying, not creating value. It's just there, inert and useless, making you feel wealthy without actually making you wealthier. Think about what you know about health. You probably know that vegetables are good for you, that exercise matters, that sleep is crucial, that stress is harmful, that water is better than soda. You don't need another book or podcast to tell you this. You know it. But is your life reflecting that knowledge? If not, the knowledge is worthless. It's decoration in your mind, not transformation in your reality. This pattern repeats everywhere. You know you should start that project, but you haven't. You know you should have that difficult conversation, but you don't. You know you should invest in yourself, but you won't. The gap between what you know and what you do is the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap is where most people live their entire lives. So why does this happen? Why do smart people who know better not do better? Because knowing feels like doing. When you learn something new, your brain rewards you with a little hit of dopamine. You feel accomplished, enlightened, like you've made progress. But you haven't. You've just consumed information. Real progress only happens when that information leaves your head and enters your actions. There's also safety in just knowing. Actually, applying knowledge is risky. You might fail. You might look foolish. You might discover that what you learned doesn't work exactly as promised, which would mean you'd have to think critically and adapt. Staying in the learning phase forever lets you avoid all that discomfort while still feeling like you're moving forward. But here's the brutal reality. At the end of your life, nobody cares what you knew. They care what you did. They care about what you created, who you helped, what you built, how you lived. Your knowledge dies with you unless you transform it into action. Applied knowledge is power. Unapplied knowledge is just trivia. Let's talk about how to actually bridge this gap. First, you need to get ruthlessly honest with yourself. Stop pretending that consuming more content is the same as taking action. Stop using learning as a procrastination tool. If you spent more time reading about productivity than actually being productive, you have a problem. If you know more about success than you have success to show for it, you're stuck in the knowledge trap. Second, adopt the implementation mindset. Everything you learn should be followed by one immediate question. How will I use this? Not, could I use this or might I use this someday? How will you use it? When? Where? What specific action will you take because you learned this? If you can't answer clearly, you shouldn't have spent time learning it in the first place. Third, start measuring yourself by actions, not information. Don't count how many books you've read. Count how many lessons from those books you've implemented. Don't track how many courses you've taken. Track how many skills from those courses you've actually applied. Results are the only scorecard that matters. Here's a powerful framework. For everything you learn, commit to taking one small action within 24 hours. Just one. If you learn about the importance of networking, send one message to someone you admire. If you learn about financial planning, transfer money to savings today. If you learn about effective communication, have one intentional conversation where you practice that skill. These small, immediate actions create momentum and prove to yourself that you're the kind of person who implements, not just consumes. The truth is, you don't need more knowledge. You need more action. You don't need another book. You need to apply what the last 3 books taught you. You don't need another strategy. You need to execute the strategies you've already been shown. Think about the people you admire most. The successful ones, the impactful ones, the ones who've actually accomplished things. They're not necessarily the most educated or the most knowledgeable. They're the most willing to take what they know and do something with it. They're implementers, executors, people who bias towards action. You can become one of them, but it requires a fundamental shift. You have to stop valuing learning for learning's sake and start valuing learning as preparation for action. You have to stop collecting knowledge and start deploying it. You have to stop being a student of life and start being a creator of life. The information age has made knowledge abundant and cheap. What's rare and valuable now is the person who actually uses what they know. Be that person. Be the one who takes the knowledge everyone has access to and turns it into results that most people only dream about. You already know what to do. The only question left is, will you finally do it? Ready to stop learning and start doing? Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with one piece of knowledge you're committing to act on today. Not tomorrow, today.
Chapter 7. Learn from failure and rise with wisdom. Failure is going to happen. Not maybe, not possibly, definitely. You will fail multiple times, in ways you expect and in ways you never saw coming. This is not pessimism, this is reality. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can start using it. Because here's the secret that separates people who succeed from people who don't. Successful people fail just as much as everyone else. They're not luckier or more talented or immune to mistakes. They just have a completely different relationship with failure. Where most people see failure as proof they should quit, successful people see it as information they can use.
Think about a child learning to walk. They fall constantly, dozens of times a day. Sometimes it hurts. But do they interpret those falls as evidence they're not meant to walk? Do they give up and decide crawling is their destiny? Of course not. They get up, adjust, try again. They fail their way to success without even knowing that's what they're doing. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we forget this. We start attaching massive emotional weight to failure. We make it mean something about our worth, our intelligence, our potential. We let one failure become a story about who we are instead of just information about what didn't work. And that story paralyzes us. But failure is just feedback, nothing more, nothing less. It's the universe's way of saying, not that way, try this way. It's a teacher that shows you exactly what needs to change. And unlike most teachers, failure is brutally honest. It doesn't coddle you or protect your feelings. It shows you the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. The problem is truth hurts. Failure forces you to confront reality. It exposes your weaknesses. It reveals your blind spots. It shows you where your preparation fell short, where your assumptions were wrong, where your execution was lacking. That's painful. It's easier to avoid failure altogether by never really trying. It's safer to stay small, stay comfortable, stay where failure can't find you. But that's not safety. That's imprisonment. You're not protecting yourself from failure. You're protecting yourself from growth, because failure is the tuition you pay for wisdom. It's the price of admission to excellence. Show me someone who's never failed, and I'll show you someone who's never pushed themselves beyond what they already know they can do. Let's talk about what it means to actually learn from failure instead of just being hurt by it. First, you have to separate the event from your identity. You are not your failures. You are a person who experienced a failure. There's a massive difference. The failure is something that happened to you, not something you are. When you internalize this distinction, failure loses its power to define you. Second, you need to get curious instead of defensive. When something doesn't work, most people immediately look for external reasons: bad timing, bad luck, other people's mistakes. While sometimes those factors matter, that mindset robs you of power. When everything is someone else's fault, you can't improve because nothing is in your control. But when you get curious about your role in the failure, you gain power. You find the variables you can change. You discover the lessons you can extract. Ask yourself, what did I miss? What did I assume that wasn't true? What skills do I need to develop? What would I do differently next time? These questions transform failure into a dead end, into a doorway. Third, you have to fail fast and fail forward. The longer you avoid failure, the more painful it becomes when it finally happens. Small failures early in a process are gifts. They're cheap lessons. They course correct you before you've invested years in the wrong direction. Big failures late in a process are expensive. They cost time, money, confidence. So don't wait for perfection. Launch. Test. Try. Get the failure over with while the stakes are still low. Learn the lesson and move forward with new wisdom. Here's something nobody tells you about failure. It makes your eventual success more valuable. When you succeed without failing, you don't really understand why you succeeded. You can't replicate it. You can't teach it. You don't have confidence in it because you never tested it against adversity. But when you fail repeatedly and then finally succeed, you understand exactly what works and why. You've eliminated all the wrong paths. You've pressure tested your approach. Your success becomes robust because it was earned through wisdom, not luck. Think about some of history's greatest achievements. Edison failed thousands of times before creating a working light bulb. He didn't see those attempts as failures. He saw them as discovering thousands of ways that didn't work. His wisdom came from persistence through failure. J.K. Rowling's first Harry Potter book was rejected by 12 publishers. Each rejection could have convinced her to quit. Instead, each rejection refined her determination and prepared her for the massive success that followed. Your failures are preparing you too. For what, you don't always know yet, but they're building something in you that success alone never could. Resilience, humility, creativity, grit. These qualities only develop under pressure, through adversity, by failing and choosing to continue anyway. The wisdom you gain from failure is the kind that actually sticks. Book knowledge is abstract. Failure knowledge is visceral. It's carved into you through experience. You don't just know it intellectually, you feel it. And that kind of wisdom changes how you make decisions, how you assess risk, how you approach challenges. It becomes part of who you are. So when you fail, and you will, don't waste it. Don't run from it or pretend it didn't happen. Don't let shame or embarrassment prevent you from extracting the lesson. Sit with it. Examine it. Thank it for the information. And then use that information to rise stronger, smarter, and more prepared than before. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the path to success. The only real failure is giving up. Everything else is just learning.
Chapter 8. Build a mind no one can manipulate. Your mind is under siege. Every single day, forces you don't see are trying to shape how you think, what you believe, what you buy, and who you become. And the terrifying part? Most of it works. Most people walk through life as passengers in their own minds, steered by algorithms, advertisers, influencers, and ideologies they never consciously chose. The question is, are you one of them? Building a mind that no one can manipulate isn't about becoming cynical or distrusting everything. It's about becoming sovereign. It's about reclaiming control over what enters your mind and how you process it. It's about thinking for yourself instead of letting others think for you. Let's start with a hard truth. Manipulation works because it's invisible. The best manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation at all. It feels like your own thoughts, your own choices, your own conclusions. You're convinced you came to these beliefs independently. But did you? Or were you carefully guided there by someone who understood your psychology better than you do? Consider how much of what you believe came from repetition rather than investigation. How many of your opinions are yours, and how many are just ideas you heard enough times that they started feeling true? How many of your fears were planted by media designed to keep you anxious? How many of your desires were engineered by marketing designed to make you feel incomplete? This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented strategy. Billions of dollars are spent every year studying human psychology to find better ways to influence behavior. The algorithms that decide what you see are optimized not for your well-being, but for your engagement. The news you consume is designed not to inform you, but to trigger emotional reactions that keep you watching. The products marketed to you aren't solving problems, they're creating insecurities and then selling the solution. And it's working. Most people's inner voice isn't even their own anymore. It's an echo chamber of external influences they absorbed unconsciously. They think they're thinking, but they're really just replaying scripts written by others. Building an unmanipulable mind starts with awareness. You have to recognize that influence is constant and intentional. Every piece of content you consume has an agenda. Every advertisement, every news story, every social media post, every conversation with someone who wants to convince you of something. This doesn't mean that everyone is evil. It just means everyone has a perspective they're trying to share, and that perspective shapes you whether you realize it or not. Once you're aware, the next step is questioning, and not surface-level questioning, deep questioning.
When you encounter a claim, an argument, or a belief, you need to ask, who benefits if I believe this? What evidence supports this? What evidence contradicts this? What am I not being told? What are the assumptions underlying this idea? Is this appealing to my logic or my emotions? Most manipulation targets emotions, not logic. Fear, anger, desire, insecurity. These emotions bypass your rational mind and trigger immediate reactions. The manipulator knows that if they can make you feel something intensely enough, you'll stop thinking clearly. You'll accept conclusions without questioning premises. You'll act without analyzing. Critical thinking is your defense mechanism. It's the skill of examining information objectively, separating fact from opinion, identifying logical fallacies, and reaching conclusions based on evidence rather than emotion. But here's the problem. Most people were never taught how to think critically. They were taught what to think, fill in the right answers, memorize the right facts, accept the right narratives. The system rewards compliance, not questioning. You have to teach yourself. Start by recognizing common manipulation tactics, ad hominem attacks, discrediting the person instead of addressing their argument, false dichotomies, presenting only two options when more exist, appeals to authority, claiming something is true because an expert said it so without examining the actual evidence, bandwagon effects, suggesting something is right because everyone believes it, emotional manipulation, using fear, outrage, or desire to override your rational analysis. Once you can spot these tactics, they lose their power. You start seeing manipulation everywhere, in politics, advertising, social media, even casual conversations. And instead of being unconsciously influenced, you become consciously aware of the attempt and can choose whether to accept it or reject it. But awareness and critical thinking aren't enough. You also need information diversity. One of the most effective manipulation strategies is controlling your information environment. If you only consume content from sources that share the same perspective, you're not thinking independently. You're being indoctrinated. Your beliefs aren't tested. Your assumptions aren't challenged. You live in an echo chamber that feels like truth, but is really just repetition. Deliberately expose yourself to perspectives you disagree with, not to adopt them, but to understand them. Read arguments from people who hold opposite views. Listen to experts who contradict each other. Engage with ideas that make you uncomfortable. This doesn't mean accepting everything you hear. It means testing your beliefs against opposing ones to see which actually stand up to scrutiny. The strongest beliefs are the ones that survive contact with their strongest opposition. If your ideas can't withstand challenge, they're not really your ideas. They're just dogma you've accepted without examination. Here's another crucial element: emotional regulation. Manipulation succeeds when you're reactive. When you're calm, centered, and in control of your emotional state, you can process information rationally. But when you're triggered, angry, afraid, defensive, you become easy to steer. You'll believe things that confirm your emotional state and reject things that threaten it, regardless of truth. Practice creating space between stimulus and response. When something triggers a strong emotional reaction, pause, breathe. Ask yourself why you're feeling this way. Is the emotion justified by facts, or is it being deliberately provoked? What would you think about this situation if you weren't emotional? This space is where your power lives. You also need to develop intellectual humility. This might sound contradictory. How can humility protect you from manipulation? Because manipulation often works by exploiting certainty. When you're absolutely certain you're right, you stop questioning, you stop learning, you become rigid, and rigid things are easy to control. Just find their trigger points and push. But when you hold your beliefs with humility, acknowledging you might be wrong, that you don't have all the information, that truth is complex, you stay flexible and curious. You're open to new evidence without being gullible. You can change your mind without feeling like you're betraying yourself. This flexibility makes you much harder to manipulate because you're not locked into positions that others can exploit. Building an unmanipulable mind also means curating your influences carefully. You become the average of what you consume. If you're constantly consuming content designed to make you anxious, angry, or insecure, that's what you'll become. If you are surrounding yourself with shallow thinking, that's how you'll think. But if you deliberately choose high-quality, challenging, diverse sources of information, your mind becomes sharper and more resilient. Be ruthless about protecting your attention and your mental mentalment. Unfollow accounts that make you feel worse. Stop watching news that profits from your anxiety. Avoid people who manipulate through guilt or fear. Seek out thinkers that challenge you respectfully, sources that present evidence honestly, and communities that value truth over tribal loyalty. Finally, understand that an unmanipulable mind isn't a closed mind. It's not about refusing all influence or rejecting everything external. It's about being selective and conscious. Some influence is valuable. Good teachers influence you toward wisdom. Great books influence you toward growth. Loving relationships influence you toward becoming better. The goal isn't to reject all influence. It's to choose it deliberately rather than accepting it passively. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. Nothing enters without your permission. Nothing shapes your thinking without your awareness. Nothing controls your beliefs without your conscious choice. This is sovereignty. This is freedom. This is power. In a world designed to manipulate you, an independent mind is an act of rebellion. It's also your greatest protection, because when no one can manipulate your thinking, no one can control your life. You become truly free, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. The question isn't whether you'll be influenced. The question is whether you'll choose your influences or let them be chosen for you.
Chapter 9. Study Success the way others study entertainment. Here's a question that will tell you everything about your future. What do you study? Not what you're required to study in school or work. What do you choose to study when nobody's watching? Where does your attention naturally flow when you have free time? What patterns do you analyze? What systems do you try to understand? For most people, the answer's uncomfortable. They study entertainment. They can tell you intricate details about fictional characters, but nothing about successful people in their field. They know every plot twist in their favorite show, but can't name 3 principles that would actually improve their life. They've spent hundreds of hours consuming content designed to distract them, and almost 0 hours studying content designed to elevate them. And they wonder why their life isn't changing. Success leaves clues. Everywhere. In biographies, in case studies, in interviews with people who've achieved what you want to achieve. The patterns are there, repeated across industries, disciplines, and generations. The strategies that work are documented. The mistakes that derail people are well known. The principles that create results are accessible to anyone willing to study them. But most people won't. They'll binge 8 hours of television and call 20 minutes of reading about success boring. They'll spend hours scrolling through social media and claim they don't have time to learn about business, psychology, or personal development. They'll memorize statistics about sports teams, but can't remember basic principles about wealth building or relationship dynamics. This is why success is rare. Not because it's complicated, because most people won't study it. Think about the level of attention people give to entertainment. They analyze every scene. They debate theories. They rewatch episodes to catch details they missed. They join communities to discuss it. They invest emotionally, mentally, and socially. Now imagine applying even half that energy to studying success, to understanding how top performers think, to analyzing why certain businesses thrive, to learning how effective people manage their time, their energy, their relationships. The results would be transformational, but it requires a fundamental shift in how you view your time and attention. Entertainment is designed to be effortless. It requires no energy from you. You just consume and feel something temporarily. Success study requires effort. It demands that you think, question, apply, and grow. It's harder. But hard things are what create actual value in your life. Easy things just pass the time. So what does it mean to study success practically? It starts with intentional consumption. Instead of passively consuming whatever algorithm feeds you, you actively seek out content from people who have what you want. If you want financial freedom, study wealthy people, not celebrities, people who built sustainable wealth. If you want better relationships, study people who have maintained healthy partnerships for decades. If you want career success, study people in your field who rose to the top. But don't just consume, analyze. When you read a biography or watch an interview, don't just enjoy the story, extract the patterns. What decisions led to breakthroughs? What habits appear repeatedly? What mistakes were made and how were they corrected? What principles guided their actions? What beliefs shaped their choices? Take notes, not because you'll forget, but because the act of writing forces deeper processing. When you articulate what you're learning, you understand it better. You make connections. You start seeing how principles from one domain apply to another. Your notes become your personal success manual, customized to what resonates with you. Then apply. This is where most people fail even when they do study success. They collect information like trophies but never use it. Studying success without application is just sophisticated procrastination. Every principle you learn should be followed by a test. How can I apply this week? What experiment can I run based on this insight? What behavior will I change because of this understanding? Here's something powerful about studying success. You start noticing patterns that transcend fields. The discipline that builds athletic excellence is the same discipline that builds business excellence. The focus required to master music is the same focus required to master any craft. The resilience that helps someone overcome personal tragedy is the same resilience that helps someone overcome business failure. Success principles are universal. Once you learn them in one context, you can apply them everywhere. You also need to study failure with the same intensity. Success stories are inspiring, but failure stories are educational. They show you the warning signs, the red flags you should watch for, the mistakes that seem small but compound into disasters. When someone shares how they lost everything, pay attention. Those lessons are expensive wisdom you can get for free if you're willing to learn from others' pain instead of requiring your own. Create a success curriculum for yourself. Decide what areas matter most to your goals and systematically study those areas. If communication is crucial to your success, dedicate time every week to studying great communicators. If leadership is important, study leaders across history and industries. If creativity is your edge, study how creative people think and work. Treat this like actual school because it is. It's the school of life and you're both teacher and student. Set learning goals. Track your progress. Test yourself on what you've learned. Most importantly, measure results. Is your life actually improving based on what you're studying? If not, either you're studying the wrong things or you're not applying what you're learning. Here's the beautiful part. Studying success is more engaging than entertainment once you realize what's possible. Entertainment shows you fictional lives. Success study shows you real transformations. Entertainment makes you feel something temporarily. Success study gives you tools permanently. Entertainment ends when the episode ends. Success study compounds forever. The people you admire, the ones living lives you'd love to live, they didn't get there by accident. They studied success. They learned principles. They applied strategies. They made intentional choices based on knowledge rather than impulse. And everything they did, you can study. Everything they learned, you can learn. Everything they achieved, you can achieve if you're willing to study it with the same intensity others study entertainment. You have the same hours in your day as the most successful people on the planet. The difference is what you do with those hours, and what you study during those hours shapes everything else. The question isn't whether success is possible for you. The question is, are you willing to study it like it matters? Because it does. Your future self is being built right now by what you're learning today. What will you study? If you're ready to study success instead of just consuming entertainment,
Chapter 10. Reflection. The bridge between knowledge and wisdom. You can learn everything and change nothing. You can read 100 books, attend every seminar, consume endless content, and still be exactly who you were when you started. This happens all the time. People become walking encyclopedias of information who never actually transform. They know what to do, but don't become who they need to be to do it. The missing piece is reflection, and it's the most underrated, underutilized, and misunderstood practice in personal development. Reflection is not just thinking about your day. It's not just journaling random thoughts or listing what happened. Real reflection is the deliberate process of extracting wisdom from experience. It's the bridge that takes raw knowledge and converts it into personal understanding. It's how lessons move from your head to your bones. Without reflection, life becomes a blur of experiences you move through but don't learn from. You repeat the same mistakes because you never stop to understand why you made them. You miss opportunities because you didn't take time to recognize the patterns. You accumulate years without accumulating wisdom. Think about it. You can read about discipline, but until you reflect on the specific moments when you chose discipline over distraction and how that felt, discipline remains theoretical. You can learn about communication, but until you reflect on actual conversations you had, what worked, what didn't, what you could improve, communication remains abstract. Reflection turns theory into personal truth. It makes knowledge stick because you're not just passively receiving information, you're actively integrating it into your life story. Here's what reflection actually looks like. It's asking yourself questions that most people never ask. Not surface questions like, what did I do today? But deeper ones. What did I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? What assumption did I have that turned out to be wrong? What worked that I should do more of? What didn't work that I should change? What pattern am I noticing about myself? What choice am I proud of? What choice do I regret? And what would I do differently? These questions force you to process experience rather than just accumulate it. They make you an active participant in your own growth rather than a passive observer of your life. The most powerful people throughout history were reflectors. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful emperors in human history, spent time every day reflecting in writing. Those reflections became one of the most influential philosophy books ever written. Benjamin Franklin conducted moral reflection daily, tracking virtues he wanted to develop and honestly assessing his progress. Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors in the world, built his investment approach on principles extracted from reflecting on his experiences and mistakes. These weren't people with more time than you. They were people who understood that time spent in reflection multiplies the value of every other hour spent. An hour of action, followed by 15 minutes of reflection, is worth more than 2 hours of action without any reflection. The reflection converts experience into wisdom, which then improves every future action.
But reflection requires something most people won't give: honesty. Brutal, uncomfortable honesty with yourself. You can't reflect effectively if you're protecting your ego, making excuses, or filtering reality through denial. You have to be willing to see yourself clearly: the good, the bad, the inconsistencies, the gaps between who you claim to be and who you actually are. This is why most people avoid reflection. It's confronting. It shows you truths you'd rather not see. It's easier to stay busy, stay distracted, keep moving so fast that you never have to sit with the reality of your choices and their consequences. Reflection demands you slow down and look honestly at your life. For many people, that's terrifying, but it's also liberating, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't improve what you don't measure. You can't grow beyond patterns you won't examine. Reflection gives you power because it gives you clarity, and clarity is the prerequisite for all meaningful change. Let's make this practical. How do you actually build a reflection practice? First, create space for it. This doesn't mean you need hours. Even 10 minutes of quality reflection daily is transformational. But it needs to be protected time. Not reflection while doing something else, not reflection while distracted. Dedicated, focused time where your only job is to think about your life intentionally. Second, have a structure. Unstructured reflection often becomes unproductive rambling. Use prompts. Ask specific questions. Review specific areas of your life. Some days you might reflect on your work. What made today productive or unproductive? What energized me? What drained me? Other days might focus on learning. What's the most important thing I learned this week? How am I applying it? What's one thing I want to understand better? And third, write it down. Reflection in your head is better than no reflection, but written reflection is exponentially more powerful. Writing forces clarity. You can't fake understanding when you have to articulate it in words. Writing also creates a record. You can look back weeks, months, or years later and see how you've grown, what patterns have persisted, what changes have actually taken root. This long-term perspective is incredibly valuable and impossible without documentation. And fourth, focus on extraction, not just description. Don't just write what happened, extract the lesson. Don't just note that you felt anxious, reflect on what triggered it and what that reveals about you. Don't just record a conflict, analyze what you could have done differently and what principle you can apply next time. The goal is always to move from experience to understanding to application. Here's something beautiful that happens with consistent reflection. You start living more intentionally in real time. When you know you're going to reflect on your day, you pay more attention during your day. You become more conscious of your choices because you know you'll be examining them later. This creates a feedback loop where reflection improves awareness, which improves behavior, which gives you better experiences to reflect on, which deepens your wisdom further. Reflection also builds self-trust. When you consistently reflect and apply what you learned, you prove to yourself that you're capable of growth. You're not stuck. You're not fixed. You're someone who learns, adapts, and evolves. That self-knowledge is confidence that can't be shaken because it's earned through honest self-examination. The gap between knowledge and wisdom is experience plus reflection. You need both. Experience without reflection is just random events you survived but didn't learn from. Reflection without experience is just navel-gazing with nothing to actually reflect on. But experience filtered through reflection, that's wisdom. That's how you evolve from just collecting years to actually becoming wiser with them. Most people go through life on autopilot, reacting to whatever happens without ever pausing to extract meaning from it. They reach the end of their lives with decades of experience, but not much wisdom to show for it. Don't be most people. Take time to reflect. Be honest with yourself. Extract the lessons. Apply the wisdom. Let your experiences teach you. Let your mistakes refine you. Let your successes inform you. Use reflection as the tool it is, the bridge that takes everything you've learned and transforms you into everything you're capable of becoming. Because at the end of the day, wisdom is not what you know. It's who you become because of what you know. And you only become that person through the practice of reflection. Your journey of growth deserves to be examined, understood, and honored. That's what reflection does. It takes your life and makes it meaningful. It takes your experiences and makes them educational. It takes your knowledge and makes it wisdom. And wisdom is what changes everything.